Hello and welcome to Normal Islands Live. I'm Curtis Daly and I'm really happy, really exciting. I'm joined by Barry Malone. Barry, how was your Monday? Actually, how was your weekend, first of all?
It wasn't bad. Yeah, it was kind of a weird weekend. I went to Doncaster to see a boxing match.
Oh, nice.
So
Okay.
yeah, I'm like the world's most unlikely massive boxing fan. And
I'm a big boxing fan too. I used to when I was
you,
younger. Yeah.
there was this son of Doncaster, Dave Allen, was fighting in Doncaster Stadium at the weekend. So unfortunately, he spectacularly lost with
Oh, hard luck.
his corner throwing the towel in round three. But I enjoyed
Oh, I
myself in
didn't get a
Doncaster
distance.
anyway.
Oh,
No,
what?
not
Do you know
even
what?
close.
I didn't know you were a big boxing fan.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
amazing.
We should
I
talk
did it when I
about
was
it.
18.
Get out of town.
Back when I was skinny and could actually exercise.
I was skinny once.
I was slowed down quite a bit. Damn, I could make this show about boxing, but I don't. That'd be quite rude to our viewers, wouldn't
Yeah, exactly.
it? But I'm very happy you're here, Barry. We're gonna have a fantastic show, and of course, your brilliant analysis. Now this is what we've got coming up tonight. We're going to be discussing the Unite the Kingdom rally. I think it's ironically named Unite the Kingdom. And of course, we'll be talking about the latest development of Wes Streeting and Andy Burnham. And then finally, a potential Reform and Tory pact. Now, remember to like the stream, make sure you're subscribed and hit the notification bell. And if you want to support us, then you can go to turnfmedia.co.uk/support to help fund our work. Make sure you get involved in the comments, as of course we'll be reading them out in the show. Let's go to our first story. Britain is not a multicultural country, according to a speaker at Tommy Robinson's Unite the Kingdom rally. Let's take a look.
And you have to remember, people, that the foundational building block for our nation, for Britain, United Kingdom, is Christianity. We are not a multicultural. The culture of these lands is Christianity. That is our very foundational building block. Let me tell you something. 1,000 years of Christianity, of incredibly brave Christian fighting men. And you have to think, where does that saying come from, this green and pleasant land? Well, I'll tell you why it's a green and pleasant land. And that's because it is absolutely soaked and saturated in the blood of Christian patriot fighting men and women that stood in fields with swords, shields, axes, pitchforks, and they defended their children, their land, their country from the rampaging, murdering hordes, invaders. Huh? I've just got to do the Lord's Prayer. So what I'm going to do is, I just want to start off with a little blessing. We're just going to say the Lord's Prayer.
He's talking about the Crusades, for God's sake. Thousands of years ago. What is this guy talking about? Have you noticed he got cut off there? Because he starts talking about invaders murdering good Christian people. Although he's speaking about medieval times. Perhaps we can read between his words. But he gets cut off due to rules around hate speech at protests, which holds organisers directly responsible for speakers at their events. At a briefing before this weekend's marches, Deputy Assistant Commissioner James Harman said this: "For the first time, we've also imposed conditions relating to the speakers at these protests. These conditions make the organisers responsible for ensuring that speakers they invite don't break the law by using these events to platform from unlawful extremism to hate speech. Both the speakers and the organisers will face consequences if that happens." This goes to show these kinds of people who are, invited to these rallies. Now, the preacher, turns out, Tommy Robinson's second cousin and EDL co-founder Kevin Carroll. He then goes on to end his speech with a recital of the Lord's Prayer.
You ready? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Now, what's interesting to me is the overuse of Christianity to push the idea that Britain is not multicultural. But according to the 2021 census, it says in England and Wales, 46.2% of people are Christian, falling from 59.3 in 2011, while 37.2 of people identify as non-religious, and increased from 25.2% in 2011. Those of Muslim faith have increased by 1.6% from 4.9 in 2011 to 6.5 in 2021. Now, of course, you can believe in whatever religion you want to believe in. You can practice in any way. I'm an atheist, but of course, I think people should have the freedom to, practice the way they see fit. But I also do suspect that of the 47% of those who identify as Christian, how many of those are, adhering to the Christian faith, or maybe sort of just tick a box and say, yeah, they're Christian, but maybe they don't even believe in God. Now, right-wingers would have you believe that Islam is the fastest growing religion in the UK, but according to that data, we are becoming less religious overall. So why the increase in Christian rhetoric by the far right? Well, I think it's got to do with the yankification of politics overall. I mean, let's take a look at another clip from the United Kingdom rally where crosses were being handed out to attendees. Now, sharing the video on Twitter, MAGA Voice tweeted, "I am in tears. British patriots are grabbing crosses as they march to take back their country. Amen. UK has fallen. UK patriots want it back. Jesus Christ is king." Jesus Christ is king. Again, that's American yankification slob. I'm sorry. While Harry Eccles said this: "Petrified displays of white supremacy. Since when did the UK get infected with Christo-fascism? This isn't the USA." Now, the rally did have a magnet of, let's say, some incredible talents.
And you never walk alone. Come on. You never walk alone. Lift it up, come on. Walk on, civilian soldiers. Civilian soldiers. Just the men. Oh. And the women. Now everyone together. 1, 2, 3. They tried to silence, tried to shame. We won't bow nor play their game. Speak the truth, we stand our ground. Within the people that power's found. Come on, stand side by side. Time to stand, we must not hide. Raise your voices, raise your voice. Free speech lives, it's still our choice. Come on, the time has come. Unite the kingdom, we'll show them how. Come on!
Was that Mickey Rourke as well in the second clip? A discount Mickey Rourke. Incredible stuff. I think we had in the first clip of the backup band, we had like 7 different notes from 7 different people. Crazy stuff. Now, despite Tommy Robinson claiming there were 1 million, billion, willion people that turned up, the Met estimated that a total of 50,000 people were in attendance. As you can see from these pictures, clearly that's not the case. Tommy Robinson also did say the same thing last year. He said there was millions of people. But as you can see from this footage here, I mean, You couldn't even fill the park up. That's not millions of people. Now, we also have some exclusive footage for you as Ben McLean and Sarah Dalal attended the march, along with speaking to those who were there at the counter demo. Let's take a look. Also, I've not seen this either. So for me and Barry, this is the first time watching this. It's a 5-minute clip of what went down at the United Kingdom rally.
Okay, let's see if we can get some people to talk to us. What brought you out here today?
Oh, my mate.
Mate, so it's like a social thing very much for you guys.
Came on the last one, dragged me out. It's so peaceful that we thought we'd come on this one as well.
What brought you out here today?
Mate, to meet the family and have a good day.
Sort of a social event for you?
Yeah, of course it is. We love our country and that's it.
Can I ask what brought you out here today?
Supporting the great British country, mate.
We're the minority. We're the minority.
I think it's about 88% of the population is white, but never mind. Can I ask what brought you out here today?
We are supporting our country.
Cool.
That's it.
Awesome.
Support our country. Make Britain great again. End of. Let's go. Let's fucking go.
What's
We're allowed
changed?
to fly our flag.
Yeah, of course you're allowed to fly the flag.
flying our flag, but you can fly every other flag.
So is this about flying flags, or is it about...
No, it's about supporting Britain. We want a decent Britain.
So why are you here today?
Because I want to stop the boats,
The boats.
illegal immigrants, that's all it's about, because these people are coming in and they're not a lot good in them, you know, there's a lot good but there's also a lot not, and I just think that it's time to stop those who haven't been police checked and things like that from coming in.
Just want more rigid measures. Ben?
Government trying to force on us multiculturalism at a very fast pace without giving us a reason for it. There must be a reason for it, otherwise they wouldn't be doing it. If I had one job to offer, if I was a businessman, I wouldn't invite 120,000 people to the interview.
The Labour government, in terms of putting the British people first, they're obviously not doing that. They've got a poor economic policy in terms of the way they're using quantitative easing. It doesn't work the way he's done it. Labour have bankrupted the country every single time they've been in power, and it just needs to stop.
Sort of younger guys. That is interesting. There's a British-Israeli flag there. Look, the Union Jack with the Israeli Star of David on it.
Please make it make sense.
I'm really interested to know why the Israeli flag today.
Because I love Israel.
Ah, okay.
I do, I really do. Being a Christian, it's the foundation of my faith.
Okay.
But that's not what it's about really. Today is about British values. And the thing, I'm just thinking, you know, who's planting the bombs? Is it the Israelis? No, it's not.
What's in terms of the British values? What are you thinking of?
Oh my! What this country is built on. Oh my word! Come on! It's Christian. It's got a Christian basis, and we should keep it that way.
There have been lots of women, but they tended to be older women. It's trended that way, at least as far as I can see. So they've got mega hats, make England great again. My question is, what happened to unite the kingdom? Hang on a second, you know?
People literally walked past saying up the English to me and fuck your mum. Someone said that walking past. Did you hear him, Ben?
I didn't hear that.
Someone said it walking past and obviously saying fuck media, we're not even media, like we're just...
I absolutely believe you, but I didn't hear it myself.
Fucking
you know?
insane.
Yeah. You're from Iran yourself?
We are Persian Iranian, yes.
Yeah. Can I ask? Obviously, I presume you support Iranians who are like fighting the regime in Iran, right?
That's why we are here.
Yeah.
8 to 10 millions outside the country.
I'm just sort of interested. Do you think that those people should be given refugee status, and their families, importantly, if they seek it in the UK?
Reasons.
if they have good reasons. We have some Iranians, we noticed, especially during the war, recent war, that some of these Iranians who came here and pretended that they escaped the Islamic regime, and they started supporting the regime. They went against the war, and they said, no, do not attack the regime, and that is in contradiction with all we stand for.
Oh no, he's being questioned by the police. Oh, he's got to take the face covering off. It's against their rules. Like even Tommy Robinson was saying, don't wear a face covering. Hey, why did the police stop you there?
They said I might get told for my face covering.
They're mounting up.
They said I might get told for my face covering.
Okay, right.
Wow, that was interesting. Thank you so much for Ben McLean and Sarah Delisle going down into the Lion's Den. Lion's Den, I didn't even mean to say that. Going down in there and putting up a fantastic film. Very interesting stuff there. Particularly the bit where he's like, you can't fly our flags everywhere. And then the camera pans to everyone flying the flag. The interesting thing about the person who wore the Restore t-shirt, I think he just heard the words quantitative easing. That was the first time he heard it and then just used it in there. Clearly he has no economic theory, because he said, oh, the problem is the government's using quantitative easing, but also they're bankrupting the nation. I mean, does he not understand that quantitative easing means that the government leverages their economic policy to make borrowing cheaper? Anyway, I don't think he knew what he was talking about, but yeah, very interesting video. Now, the right wing, including GB News, have attacked anyone who accused this rally of being far right. They have selectively used footage to downplay the extreme elements of the march, opting to only share videos of genuine people who call for unity. Now, many of us on the left have continually said that not everyone who turns up to these marches are far right, but the organisers are. We've said this on so many occasions that the likes of GB News are not ignorant of our arguments. They are deliberately lying about what we're claiming. Now, we're not here to attack individual people who feel like this rally is about unity. We're here to go after those who are organising it. The sorts of people who've been invited, including one, Valentina Gomez.
It's that simple. Public executions for any illegal that rapes or kills an American. They don't deserve deportation. They deserve to be ended.
Of course, no love lost for via rapists, but she's talking about immigrants specifically. I mean, if you were consistent, you would say all rapists would be killed, but she only says immigrants. I feel like the operative thing isn't the rapist there, the immigrant is what she hates. And again, like, just extrajudicially killing people, that's not far right. Now, given the lies the far right make about immigrants, I mean, how many innocents would be killed? Valentina Gomez, again, who was invited to the Tommy Robinson march or rally, she also said this.
I just got banned from England by a dirty Pakistani Muslim because I'm not coming to rape or kill little girls. Plan A is for airplane, and since that's no longer an option, we're going to plan B. And plan B is for boats. So I'm gonna do exactly what the rapist pedophile Muslims do. I'm gonna hop on a boat, get free luxury accommodation, deliver my beautiful speech, and if they dare to arrest me, I guarantee you that the White House will get involved. Because I'm not just coming with Jesus Christ, I'm coming with current and former soldiers of the United States military. And if they really want to deny my entry, well, they're just gonna have to stop the boats. Don't forget, England belongs to the English. See you all on May 16th.
What a appalling, disgusting woman. Colombian immigrant to America, by the way, says that England belongs to the English, and says if she isn't allowed to go to the rally, she will go by boat. The irony is not lost on her. Of course, we had the last laugh though, because she was not allowed to come to this country and she didn't make it to the rally. But again, the irony of those who support strict borders are crying about UK borders being enforced and claiming, again, she was going to come on the boat. Critical support for Shabana Mahmood. Like, I don't support her politics, but she banned this scumbag. Funny enough, though, how GB News didn't show that video of her or any of the other hate preachers. And finally, despite the media accusing immigrants of being rapists and paedophiles whilst ignoring the British rapists and paedophiles, this is a video of a man from Rochdale at the march hitting on a 15-year-old girl.
Fellas, no, I am on a trip, mate. Nice to see you supporting the nation, fellas. This is my little girlfriend. What's your name?
Hey, she ain't no child bride.
How old is she?
She's 15.
Oh, are you? Fucking hell. How old are you really?
Go on, I'm going to stand up.
Please, I'm going to go to jail in a minute.
There you
Look at that. Rochdale. Rochdale. See you later, G. All day long, Barry. Oh, I love her. Excuse me, my love. Can I get your details and see you? Oh, Mum. Mum, look at that. Fucking hell. You need a warning sign on you.
She's got a mother, that's enough.
Oh, you're too happy to be a barking one. Wolf. Woo. You doing?
The subtitle says 16, but you can clearly hear the mother say 15, by the way. Just depraved. Barry, what are your thoughts on the increased focus on Christianity by the far right? And why are we seeing more Americanization in British politics?
Yeah, that was crazy footage. You can say what you want about the far right, but like you do have to admit that they're also shite at music. Sorry. Look, I think with the Christianity thing, it's crazy. It's happened so fast, and it's brand new, right? We've never seen that in this country before. When you look at sort of traditional British conservatism or far right politics, it's never cloaked itself in Christianity that way. And so it feels like this is some kind of a hybrid between sort of, American far right aesthetics, American culture war nonsense, and then it's been sort of bolted on to British anti-migrant, anti-Islamism, imperial nostalgia type far right politics, which is weird because to me it doesn't seem like necessarily a good fit. There are benefits. I think that there are benefits. One of the big ones is it's getting noticed in the US, right? I mean, the American far right is seeing this. You had that tweet from that big MAGA account. And I think that they're actively supporting it. And there's been lots of excellent reporting out there which has shown that, Tommy Robinson and associated people have received funding from the US far right and the US conservative Christian movement. I know that there's a tech billionaire called Robert Shillman who has given Robinson money. That's well documented. I think he might have even made a donation to organizing the march yesterday. There's this conservative think tank called the Middle East Forum, which has also helped to fund Tommy Robinson. It's funded, I think, his legal defenses in a couple of cases. Again, that's established. The Middle East Forum has come out and said that. I think that if they weren't kind of cloaking themselves in this kind of US iconography and using this, US terminology, even like patriot, right? We didn't really hear that before. We had the use of the word patriotism, but we didn't sort of have people on the far right saying, I'm a patriot. And if you don't sort of agree with me, if you don't stand with me, then you hate your country. I feel like that whole I'm a patriot, we're patriots thing is quite new too. And, there's a key sort of motivating factor there for the US, right? Which is, there's a huge element there. They want to be transnational. You have these sort of Christian groups who fund anti-LGBTQ plus movements in other countries. They've done it in Eastern Europe. They've done it in Africa. Again, it's an attempt to extend their reach across the world. They had a blow in Hungary recently with the loss of Viktor Orban, but I think that they do see the UK as fertile ground. I also think there's another interesting thing about this Christianity thing, which is that before we had the far right kind of talking in quite vague terms, right, about Judeo-Christian values and about Judeo-Christian ideas. And your friend Helena No Justice MTG dismantled that on Novara a couple of weeks ago. If anybody wants to look it up, Judeo-Christianism as a concept. Now they're kind of more forcefully moving into the Christian thing, and I think it helps them to be Islamophobic, right? I think there's a big Islamophobic element to it as well, because what you're doing is you're setting up Christianity against Islam, and you're saying this is not a Christian country. This is a Christian country, and we will not let Islam gain a foothold in this country. We will not be defeated by Islam. So I think that there's an element of that too. But in terms of it being like a benefit, there are huge buts here. Like, there are huge buts here. The US and the UK are very, very different countries. And as your stats, I think, proved there, but I think that, we sort of know this, is that the UK is not as religious as the US. I lived in the US for about 5 years, and it was only when I lived there that it really, in a way, struck me how very Christian a country it was when I started to travel around the US a bit. So I would drive through places like West Virginia, Maryland, and you would see churches everywhere. Everywhere. You could go into a small town, there could be 2-3 churches, there'd be, crosses in the middle of the town, and it just struck me that rural America was sort of like deeply religious, and you don't see that to the same extent in the UK. So it's like you said, I don't think, there are people on that march who probably will have raised their eyebrows at that, probably will have been a little bit uncomfortable with that. And, the other thing is that Trump is woefully unpopular in this country, right? There was a poll recently that showed that only 11% of British voters had a favourable opinion towards Trump. And that also includes people on the right. So I wonder if, part of the reason why the numbers at the previous march were so much bigger than the numbers at this march are people waking up to just how kind of weird it's become. And, so I guess ultimately I think that if that is what's going to dominate this movement going forward, then I don't think it's good for the movement. I think it's going to be less popular.
I wasn't born in the 80s, but if I look at if I read up in history or even look at videos or images rather of that time, it feels like that the white supremacist and ethno-nationalist or even just nationalist movements were more sincere in its own politics. And when I say sincere, it's not me saying it's positive or anything, but I feel like those movements were they were actual nationalists. Yet what we're seeing now, there's nothing nationalist about it. It's very quote unquote globalist, right? You hear on right-wing shows about pro-Palestine marches oh, is this British patriots, or is this a march for Gaza? All you see is Palestine flags, right? And they're trying to obviously attack the pro-Palestinian movements as something that is somehow has a contradiction with the support of British people. But then you look at these marches, you've got flags in support of the Iranian monarchy, you've got Israel flags there, for example, and it's well, hold on a second, I thought this was about uniting Britain and it was a pro-nationalist march. It's anything but. And then of course you've got all the foreign money going in there. I suppose,
the thing,
yeah.
Sorry, Curtis. It's very confused movement too.
Yeah.
It's there's all these disparate elements, and there's a lot of confusion, right, about what it stands for. And it's like you said that people go on the marches who we want to unite the kingdom, or my life is shite and I have no money in my pocket, and there's a cost of living, and my community is being eroded because there's no community centres. The pubs are being taxed to the hilt, and they're having to pay exorbitant rates, and they're closing, and I feel a bit adrift. Hey, is this where I need to go to find community? There was an interview, I can't remember the person who did it, but she's got a big following on Instagram, and she was at one of these marches. I don't think it was in London, it was outside London. But she was talking to these two young lads, and she sort of said to them, why did you come out today? And they went, oh, it's just sort of something to do, everybody was coming and seemed like it could be fun. And then she said, but what do you think about the issues? And they said, well, I guess they say that people come on the boats and they get a lot of money. And she was like, are you guys racist? And they sort of said, oh, no. And then she said, it really breaks my heart to see you two on this march, right? It was a very good clip. But I wonder about people like that. Will they be turned off by just this bizarre lack of cohesion? Like what are you following? What is it for? Right? I think that the stranger it gets, yes, it benefits from proximity to US politics. But can you bring a big number of British people along with that? I don't think so. I just don't see it.
Yeah, I think so, because that was a brilliant clip, by the way. But also, even in Ben and Sarah's film, you had a lot of people who there would drink, and they were just sort of like, it's kind of a social thing. And I guess the vibe of the British flag and saying we stand up for Britain draws these people in. But I suppose when they look around and hear like, why is this guy doing the Lord's Prayer and talking about the Crusades 1,000 years ago? Why is there Israeli flags here and Iranian flags here? It's a very confused movement, which could put off people, especially with I mean, I saw signs of like Trump. This guy has been accused of paedophilia and rape. You know, in fact, actually, a court has ruled that he raped someone. Okay, I can say that because a court has ruled that. So I'm sure the average person might be like, that's also a bit weird. So I guess in a way, like it seems like a movement that can only stay within its confines, right? Can it spread? I suppose the worry though is like when that translates into votes, when it translates into reform votes, restore votes. I guess that's the biggest worry, because people could be voting reform and restore on the vague notion of getting their country back. What they might not realize though is that they're also voting for global corporations, funneling money into this country. And actually, Tommy Robinson isn't a patriot, but he's someone who supports horrific regimes like Israel abroad. And actually, this is quite a global movement, but the global movement of the oligarchs.
Yeah, and I think that's a message that people need to get across, right? Again, when you speak to people in the UK and you ask them, I've seen this happen before, you ask them, who are you going to vote for? And they say reform. And then people have read out some reform policies to them. And they've said, what? They want to reduce the minimum wage. They want, people are like, oh, well, no, I wouldn't agree with any of that, But unfortunately, political coverage in this country is often too much personality based rather than talking about those policies. And, the media is too worried about Westminster gossip. And so you don't find like the reality of the policies breaking through. I do wonder about, reform though, because it did sound at times like, Robinson was pushing the crowd to vote for reform. He was saying you got to get out and vote. It's really, really important, et cetera, et cetera. But, we've even seen Farage kind of like back away from this slavish devotion to Trump, because I think that reform on some level are starting to realize that the brand is becoming toxic, especially when you look at a poll like that says only 11% of British people have a favorable opinion. So look, you can go out to that march and you can meet all kinds of people who say they love Donald Trump or Christ is king, but how many of the 60,000 people there actually have a favorable opinion of Donald Trump? So sometimes I wonder whether, wrapping yourself in the red hat helps or hinders, because you need a larger number of people to become a political force than a fringe element, right? And that, like, if reform are to become a serious political force, which which they are, right? We've seen in the local elections and we're seeing in the opinion polls, they need to appeal to a much broader base than who will be impressed by the kind of messages that we saw at that rally.
Yeah, no, I think it's very interesting. Let's move on to our main story for tonight. Of course, it's all about Labour Party. After days of speculation, Wes Streeting has finally announced that he will run in any future Labour leadership contest. And to be honest, he basically said he's going to run pretty much now.
We need a proper contest with the best candidates on the field, and I'll be standing. We need a proper contest with the best candidates on the field, and I'll be standing. Some very principled and brave ministers resigned this week from government because the private messages that have been conveyed to the Prime Minister about the loss of confidence have not been heeded. I had another choice this week. Do I pull more ministers out of the government and cause more disruption, or do we do this in the right way, ask the Prime Minister to set out a proper leadership timetable and give his ministers the freedom to nominate whoever they want to see as leader of our party and the Prime Minister of our country? That's what I think he should still do. And the third challenge is, does this debate mean that we're helping reform rather than beating reform? I think the voters have sent us a really clear message, and I think it would be good for the Labour Party to show that we've noticed. what would I say to voters who, like Andy Burnham, vote for him? Vote for him in Makerfield, especially. But look, throughout what I hope will be a good-natured contest focused on ideas, I'm not going to talk down people in the party who are my friends and colleagues. I think Andy Burnham has great strengths. I think he's been a strong mayor of Greater Manchester. I've enjoyed working with him as the Health Secretary. He's my immediate Labour predecessor. The tragedy is there was such an enormous gap between the two of us, and we don't want to create another enormous gap between Labour office holders. We've got to make sure that we deliver the change that people wanted to see.
I mean, Wes Streeting there saying, you know, I'm not going to talk down about my Labour colleagues. You need to remember Jeremy Corbyn was your Labour colleague for a long, long time, and you called him senile. But I suppose he left by then. So Streeting will talk down to you once you've left the party. Now, speaking at a conference organised by Progress, Streeting also announced his desire to rejoin the EU. He criticised Starmer's leadership style and voiced his, again, support for Andy Burnham's by-election run in Makerfield. Britain should rejoin the EU, describing Brexit as a catastrophe. Britain should rejoin the EU, describing Brexit as a catastrophic mistake, and suggested a closer relationship to Europe would help rebuild our economy and trade and improve our defence against shared threats from Russian aggression and America first. Now, I think that's an interesting intervention, given that Andy Burnham is running in a seat where 2/3 of constituents voted leave. Navarra Media's Michael Walker made this point on Twitter. Burnham loses Makerfield, soft left discredited, winning back reform voters proven to be impossible. Demoralised membership needs something to believe in. Wes swoops in on a rejoin platform, the Streeting plan. Now, despite this, Streeting said he would be outdoor knocking in Makerfield for Andy Burnham. So is Streeting sincere? I mean, it's true that Burnham would easily defeat him in a membership contest. So why would he back Burnham? Does he actually care about a healthy competition? Or is Wes playing a long game? Despite saying he wants the UK to rejoin the EU, today he has downplayed his position. Andy Burnham distances himself from calls to rejoin the EU, telling an audience in Leeds, Brexit has been damaging, but the last thing we need right now is to rerun those arguments. Now, I do think it's a correct statement to make in terms of trying to win Makerfield, but is this a U-turn? Barry, do you think Wes is stitching up Andy Burnham, you know, hoping he would lose to reform? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I am. When initially when Josh Simons stepped down to allow Burnham to run, and people were saying, "Are they doing this so Burnham will lose?" I thought that was maybe a speculation too far. I think there are other reasons why he might have stepped aside. None of them good for the left. But look, whatever about Wes Streeting's motivation, putting rejoining the EU back on the table is not good for Andy Burnham in Makerfield. It's not good at all. Like you said, 2/3 of the voters voted to leave. And I genuinely think that a position of rejoining the European Union would be a huge hindrance for Burnham. I don't see any political capital in it whatsoever. And surely Wes Streeting is smart enough to know that also. And I just think it's damaging for Burnham to have this back on the agenda and to have people talking about it today. Yes, he U-turned. For sure, he U-turned. Because I think he had talked about rejoining the EU only a few months back. And so there are videos going around today which show him saying that the UK should rejoin the European Union, and then saying today that it shouldn't. It's a clear U-turn. I think he's had 2 U-turns, right, before he's even been formally selected as the candidate, because the other one, which I think we're going to talk about later, is proportional representation. He seems to have U-turned on proportional representation. And then when you talk about sort of, the concept of Burnham as this like leftist candidate who represents change, we also saw, I think it was today, he did an interview with Bloomberg in which he said he is going to stick by Rachel Reeves' fiscal rules, which I think people were hoping he might ease a little. I think it's interesting that he gave that interview to Bloomberg. He gave that interview to Bloomberg because he was trying to talk to the markets, because he didn't want to, as the media always terms it, spook the markets. And it worked, because the pound went up after the interview against the dollar, and gilt yields rose as well. So that's the market saying, well, okay, if he's going to stick to these fiscal rules, then okay. So I think when you look at some of the things that he's promised to do, also like build more council houses, for example, if he's sticking to the fiscal rules, where's he going to get the money to do that? I mean, it can only come by increasing taxes, right? So it just all leads you, again, before the election has even started, wondering what change Andy Burnham represents. And it's been slightly odd to me over the last week to see a lot of people on the left, people who I wouldn't have expected necessarily, as in people who have appeared incredibly excited by the rise of the Green Party, now getting kind of excited about Burnham. And I know we're going to talk about this later, but, even suggesting that the Greens should not run a candidate, which I find remarkable, because all of a sudden we're now deciding that the Labour Party don't do U-turns, that Labour politician is not going to do a U-turn. Look, I just want to say about Burnham, he is a careerist politician, right? He is. Stammer is a careerist politician. Streeting is a careerist politician. If you look at Streeting, he was president, right, of the Cambridge Students' Union. Then he was president of the National Union of Students. Then he worked in the private sector for PricewaterhouseCoopers for about 5 minutes. And then he went right back into sort of the Labour Party machine. Wes Streeting's a bit like that too. Andy Burnham's a bit like that too. He joined the Labour Party when he was 15, and he was an advisor to Tessa Jowell. Then he was like a SPAD, a special advisor, and again kind of worked his way up. And there's a joke going around. I'm sure you've heard it, and I'm sure the audience, your viewers, have all heard it, which is like a Blairite, a Brownite, a Corbynista, and a Starmerite walk into a bar. What'll it be, Andy? Says the barman, right? So he's a chameleon, and I think he has a history of saying things that he thinks people want to hear. So I just don't understand how people on the left or some people on the left are fully trusting his agenda. And hopefully after today, with 2 U-turns already, they will, develop like a little bit more cynicism. By the way, this isn't me saying that Burnham is absolutely going to U-turn. What I'm saying is we don't know. And what I'm saying is we can't necessarily trust in it. So, yeah, I mean, look, for the left, is it a good sign that this guy, who some people are putting forward as the saviour of the Labour Party, has already U-turned twice before he's even been selected as the candidate? Absolutely not.
Whether the Greens should stand a candidate or not in a second. But about Wes Streeting, though, of course, I don't know, and I'm not sure if I believe that Wes Streeting was particularly in cahoots of Josh Simons, although it's very strange that Josh Simons from Labour Together, that hates anything remotely soft left, would back Burnham. I find that strange. Some people are speculating that he just wanted just to leave Parliament and get a nice cushy job in the private sector. I don't know. But for Streeting, for me, I think it's clear, though, because I think it's a multi-pronged approach, right? He's saying we should rejoin the EU to court the membership, because let's be honest, I don't think the membership is quite as left-wing as it was, right? Because, hundreds of thousands have left the Labour Party and also been kicked out. So during the Corbyn years, I think the membership was quite left-wing. Today, probably not quite as much, but I still would say more to the left of the current leadership, right?
Yeah.
But I would say maybe the 2 core things of a Labour membership is probably rejoin the EU, and are probably very disappointed in how Starmer sort of capitulated on migrant rights. And to be honest, saying things like, quoting Enoch Powell, that we're an island of strangers. I think there are 2 things. So I would say that the Labour membership is broadly progressive, not necessarily left-wing, and could be courted with the EU. So I think obviously Wes is courting that, but also, again, like, invoking the EU now is really, really odd. I think he's trying to do sort of guilt by association, but also, and I think he's got his wish, the hope was, if I bring up the EU, then a bunch of journalists are going to start asking that question.
Exactly.
They're going to ask Andy Burnham. They're going to ask him, and they have. And he's thinking, do you know what? I hope he loses. Look, I mean, as Owen Jones said, I say this all the time because it's so true, that the Labour right are soulless bastards. And I can absolutely see Wes Streeting doing that. Do you think, though, that this is a fool's errand? Because Wes Streeting is not popular. He certainly can't win a leadership contest over Andy Burnham. But Andy Burnham loses Makerfield. Maybe it was to do with, the EU. Do you think the membership may think twice about Wes Streeting and go, oh, well, maybe he has a path to rejoin? Or do you think his efforts are lost because people still think he's bullshitting us?
It's really interesting. I think, and a lot of people have said this today, and it makes sense to me. I think that, yes, of course, Wes Streeting wants Burnham to lose Makersfield. Like, no matter what he says, we know he wants that because we know that Burnham would absolutely trounce him. So I see what you're saying. It could be like quite a genius political move. Let's put this back on the table to screw over Burnham in that constituency. But yes, I also make a play to the membership because I'm massively unpopular with the membership right now in comparison to all the other candidates, including Keir Starmer. But most people, I think, are saying today that if Burnham loses Makersfield, then what could happen is Starmer holds on. Right? Is that Streeting, even if Burnham loses Makersfield, Streeting is still not going to defeat Starmer. So maybe, and Starmer has come out today, God, he's like a limpet. Like, I've never seen a politician that desperate to cling on in the face of all of the criticism, all of the unpopularity, every indication that everybody wants you gone, and you just cling. Like, this is a hell of a stubborn man, right? But, or deluded man. But I do think that he will definitely attempt to hold on if Burnham. I mean, he'll probably attempt to hold on anyway, but he might hold on. Well, I don't think that if sorry, let me sum it up like this. I don't think that if Burnham loses, Wes Streeting becomes Prime Minister.
Yeah, I mean, he's also kind of screwed himself here, right? Because he's resigned from government, and if Starmer stays as Prime Minister, he's now completely out of the loop. He was Health Secretary, one of the top jobs, a very powerful person. He's resigned, and if it's a Streeting versus Starmer matchup, I think I agree with you. I think Starmer edges it, which means that Wes has completely destroyed himself, which I think is divine justice, by the way. I think it's, that's what's deserved.
And Labour are still completely screwed.
And they are. There is really no chance for them. I also think it's very interesting that centrist or centre-right politicians really invoke the EU, and I find it very skeptical because, look, I vote to Remain, but I think I would call myself a Euro skeptic Remainer. I don't support rejoining the EU if the Euro is if we have to adopt the Euro, for example. I think that would be disastrous. But I think when politicians invoke the EU, they're kind of outsourcing their progressivism. Because they can basically say, oh, I support the EU, and lots of people go, oh, you must be progressive. But they don't actually have to support any progressive policies. They don't have to support public ownership or wealth taxes or anything like that. They can just say, oh, I support the EU, because the EU is progressive coded, even though there's massive problems with the EU. So I feel like that lots of politicians like Wes Streeting can get away with being really right-wing by saying, but I support rejoining the EU, so I'm progressive.
To impress the FBPE.
The FBPE crowd.
Yeah. But here's the thing, though. I ask you this. If a position to rejoin the EU is popular with the EU membership, that doesn't necessarily translate to being popular with the wider electorate.
True.
So like, yes, can this help get you elected as leader of the Labour Party? I guess potentially. Can it help get you elected as Prime Minister?
Oh, hell no.
Exactly.
Hell no. Which goes to show, like, is he more interested in becoming leader and doesn't really care if he loses the next election? Because surely he must know that the position of rejoining the EU right now is untenable with the wider electorate. I think we can all understand that it's courting the membership, but like, I think you're right. It's a short campaign because it's like, okay, somehow manages to become Prime Minister through the membership, but now what? You've got to what? You're going to do a U-turn? I suppose he could U-turn though, couldn't he? He could then say, actually, rejoining the EU's out of the question.
They love a U-turn. But you hit upon the key point there. He doesn't believe in anything.
Yeah.
they don't believe in anything, this current crop of Labour, senior leaders. And that's a big problem, right? Because people don't know what Labour's for. They don't know what Keir Starmer's for. They don't know what West Streeting's for. When you talk, I don't know if this phrase came from the right, but I kind of love it, the lanyard class.
Yeah, that's a good one.
West Streeting is just like a walking lanyard, or he's a walking briefcase or whatever. Like, when you look at how this guy got into politics at such a young age and then just came up through that system. When I see a guy like that and I see how he flip-flops and how he doesn't seem to be driven by any sense of mission, I think it's just somebody who's trying to do well in his chosen career, right? And for him, the pinnacle of his chosen career is to become prime minister.
Yes.
If Wes Streeting worked in a bank, right, he would be trying to climb the ladder, trying to get to whatever the position he wanted to get to, and he'd be doing everything he could to get there. If he was a lawyer, he'd be working through the law firm like that. If he worked for an NGO, if he worked for Save the Children, he'd be playing all the games to become the president of Save the Children. And, so it's just, people like Wes Streeting will do anything that they can to get to the top of their profession. Because for them, that's all it is. When you examine what they believe, you come up with nothing and you think, this is just like a profession for this guy. What is his mission? What drives him? Why is he in politics? What kind of a Britain does he want to see? This is what I just can't understand about these people.
I think given his donations from the health insurance companies, he's most likely to end up in Bupa. I'm probably going to try and be CEO of Bupa.
Right.
Let's move on to another part of the story. Now, as we all know, reports have come out, and basically in a recent interview, Andy Burnham has ruled out proportional representation before the next general election.
I stood for Westminster 4 times under the first past the post system, and then in 2017, when I stood for the first time to be Mayor of Greater Manchester under a proportional system, I realised that you had an incentive to knock on every door because you might be able to get a second preference from somebody who was a Lib Dem voter or a Green. And I used to say to them, oh, well, okay, if you support regulation of the buses, maybe you could consider giving me a second preference. And the thing about that was, it finally aligned the conversation on the doorstep with what people want from politics, which is about problem solving first and foremost, not point scoring. And for me, building a different political conversation in the country then allows us to start thinking of different long-term solutions. I think Westminster politics has served people very badly indeed.
Are we talking about electoral reform here?
I support it, and I think it brings
so ditching first past the post for a new system.
Conversation.
Okay.
And look, but that to then go on to answer your question would require it to be in a manifesto and endorsed at a general election.
Now, there has been an ongoing debate on whether the Greens should stand a candidate in Makerfield, and this latest development could potentially settle that debate. Now, on our last show, prior to these new developments, I think I was pretty clear. I was like, I don't think the Greens should stand. I don't think they can win. I still hold that position that they cannot win. Maybe do some sort of backroom deal with Andy Burnham for PR, or even for me, the logic was basically, look, I think Andy Burnham is the only person that could probably beat Reform at the next election. So this by-election isn't just contained to the by-election; it could have far-reaching consequences for the entire country. So that's where I stood. But I think these latest developments have really thrown a spanner into the works. Not just on PR. In fact, this next one, which we'll talk about in a second, right, I think is even worse. But look, for those that oppose the Green Party fielding a candidate, I think they believe a deal could be struck between the party and Burnham to implement PR. Look, make me Prime Minister, right? And you'll get a fairer voting system. That bargaining chip has been lost. But it's this one, which I think is a big kicker. Burnham said this.
So, I've quite clear, let me say this really clearly, I support the fiscal rules. There needs to be a plan to get debt down. But beyond that, we need to change politics and take the turbulence out of British politics, because that is a cause of uncertainty that then has that impact in the markets. I'm proposing here a new approach to politics, like we've built in Greater Manchester, more long-term, more collaborative.
I am shocked at that answer. Not that I'm surprised that you said it, but I just think it's a really bad political move. If you're going to promise that you're going to be different to the Labour Party in its current form, then why are you saying the one thing that basically attaches you to the current project, which is the fiscal rules, is that you support it? You know, he's been touting about public ownership, and now he's sort of saying public control. Maybe that's a euphemism. You know, he has been centre-left coded and has done some great things for Manchester, and of course bringing buses into public control. I think a lot of people are expecting that Burnham is going to come out in favour of public ownership. How are you going to do that if you want to stick to Rachel Reeves' fiscal rules? I mean, that is the worst part of this government. There's many issues with the government, of course, but the fiscal rules. And you're basically saying, yeah, no, I support the fiscal rules. Then how are you going to be different? Seriously, how? Look, I think I didn't buy the arguments that, you know, the Greens should stand a candidate based on moral arguments. Oh, you know, it's not fair and they should be allowed to stand everywhere they want. You know, I'm concerned about logical arguments. And my logic basically said, look, the Greens cannot win. I still don't think the Greens can win. But these latest developments has given, I think, logical arguments to the Greens potentially standing now. Because Andy Burnham, it seems like it's going to be no different to Keir Starmer. Now, I do think he will move the party slightly to the left. That's maybe another conversation we could get into. Or whether he can even do that. Maybe I do think he's to the left of Starmer, right? But whether he can actually do it because the party machinery won't let him do it, that's another thing too. But to say you want to stick to the fiscal rules and then rule out PR, essentially, then tangibly, how is this not another Keir Starmer running in Makerfield? Barry, I think I know your thoughts on the Greens standing a candidate. I guess I'll ask you, these latest developments, do you think before he kind of said, oh, no to PR and the fiscal rules, that you could understand the argument why some people were like, let the Greens go for mayor? You know, maybe try and take the mayoralty, but not the seat because it's dangerous. And now transition to today, where he's like, we like the fiscal rules and we don't like PR. It's given credence, far more credence, that should I say, to the Greens standing a candidate. What are your thoughts?
I get it. Of course, I get the argument that the Greens should step aside, but I'm really uncomfortable. I'm really uncomfortable with that kind of politics in general, especially when you are in a country that effectively only has two parties of government, right? When you're in a country that's a duopoly, and all you have is a choice of one or a choice of the other. And I think it's fundamentally disrespectful to the electorate for a party's position to be, or a party's pitch to be, you have to vote for us. Because if you don't vote for us, you get them. Right? Which is the same thing that we saw with Kamala Harris in the US, where, you know, we saw a lot of people on the left saying, I'm not going to vote for her because she supported a genocide. You know, this is a woman who slapped down Palestine protesters when they stood up at one of her events and said, sorry, excuse me, I'm speaking, and wouldn't even let them talk. You know, we saw that there. It's a type of politics that makes me uncomfortable, especially when you're in a situation like you are in this country right now, where you have this movement that is leftist, because Labour isn't anymore, and that are building some excitement behind them. And then you say to them, no, guys, just stand down, because now we have this soft left guy coming in and he might be... Again, I get it logically, but my heart can't get behind it, right? And I think about for the Greens themselves, you know, there's all this excitement. They're going to be different. Here we have Polanski. I have all these policies that I'm really interested in. The electorate is saying, I agree with this. Yes, bring on a wealth tax. And then you see them step aside for Burnham. You know, if you're like a devout, dyed-in-the-wool new convert to the Greens, how does that play for you also? But again, I agree with you. They have no a chance of winning. But that takes us to the proportional representation thing, because you are right in that is the biggest thing that the Greens could have got out of this if he didn't U-turn, right? Because I personally think that this country should have a system of proportional representation. And the argument for that has never been stronger, because now we have a significant number of voters voting for reform. We have a significant number of voters voting for the Greens. We have Labour and the Tories. There's also another party everybody's forgotten about called the Liberal Democrats. But, you know, we have like an electorate that is much more fragmented now, right? And so what happens with first past the post is that a fragmented electorate is not well represented in Parliament. He's talking about a system here, even when he talks about electoral reform, called supplementary vote. Supplementary vote is not proportional representation. Not to bore the turn left audience, probably know all this really well.
I want to know actually, because I don't understand SV. It's SV,
Yeah, so,
right?
supplementary vote is just a political system by which people get a second vote, right? So you vote for your preferred candidate and then you vote for your second preferred candidate. What happens is if no one candidate gets more than 50% of the vote, the top two go into a runoff. If your first preference has not made it into the runoff, your vote goes to your second preference if they have made it into the runoff. That's it. You still get one person elected. What it can lead to is a sort of a more collegiate politics, right? Because politicians have to be thinking, I need a second too. So like he said, you go on the doorstep and they say, well, I'm not going to vote for you. And you go, hey, maybe give me a second because of if you like what happened on the buses. You know, so it makes it like in a way kind of less aggressive. That's one argument that people make for it. But that is not proportional representation. I know a little bit about this because in Ireland we have an incredibly complicated system called PRSTV, which is proportional representation, single transferable vote. Now, I'm not going to take an hour, but let me just quickly explain how that is true proportional representation. And that is because every constituency has between 3 to 5 MPs, right? In Ireland, we call them Chocta Daly, TDs. So every constituency has 3 to 5 TDs, unlike in the UK where it's 1 MP per constituency. So in the constituency I grew up in, we had 5 MPs. And that's related to the size of the population. You go into the voting booth and you have, as you have here, you have the list with all of the candidates, but you have to do numbers. So you start with number 1, number 2, number 3, and you can stop at 1. You can stop at 2. You can stop at 3. Or you can, some people say, I'm going to work the entire paper. That's the thing people say in Ireland. They go, oh, no, I work the entire paper. So if there's 15 candidates, they go to 15. And what happens in that system is that there's a quota. If somebody misses the quota, then all of their votes are shared out. All of their votes are shared out by preferences. If somebody comes over the quota, then they have supplementary votes. Then their preferences are shared out, and so on until you get 3 to 5 people elected, depending on the constituency. What that should translate to in the Parliament, because of the multiple representatives for each constituency, is a makeup in Parliament. It's called the Dáil in Ireland, that is close to representing the popular vote. I'm sure I explained it really badly. So go and look it up, people, if you want to know how it actually works. Now, the benefit of that, obviously, is representation in Parliament. The argument that people make against it is that it leads to unstable governments. We have seen that, in which, you know, there have been governments that have fallen apart. We had one coalition that was called the Rainbow Coalition that was made up of so many different parties. It was like, how is this ever going to hold together? But have we seen stable government in this country recently?
No.
Right? So I just think when you look at the political lay of the land here, and you look at now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parties who people are supporting, it's anti-democratic not to have some form of proportional representation. And what he's proposing, supplementary vote, is not it.
Yeah, I can't pretend that I'm some sort of guy who knows a lot about electoral sort of voting systems. I'm not going to pretend. I do appreciate you breaking that down. Another reason actually why I was very skeptical of a Green candidate was the spoiler effects, which is that they will be blamed for being a spoiler candidate. And I thought, like, going forward, it could make the Greens look worse, especially if you're trying to court ex-Labour voters. And in Gorton and Dent, there were many Burnham supporters who voted for the Greens because he was on the ballot. And if you're seen as the spoiler candidate and the Greens are seen to have handed a victory to Reform, whether that's even true or not, I feel like that would create a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths. So that was also kind of part of my reasoning. But I am finding it harder to justify my position, given PR is, again, that annoys me, but I think I never expect PR to happen before the next election. Maybe I'm skeptical here, right? But the fiscal rules is far more immediate. So that to me, I'm like, I don't know if I can justify my old position. I guess I'm gonna have to sit with it if I'm honest, because yeah. But I think the intervention of saying existing rules, sorry, the fiscal rules is crazy. We did have a third story, but I think we're probably going to push that to another show because it's already 8:45. So I'm interested to go to people's comments, and I think this is going to maybe spark up another debate on whether the Green should stand. Our producer Ben McLean's with us. Ben, how are you doing?
Hello. Yes, I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for a lovely show. Your guys' commentary has been brilliant as always. Thank you very much for coming on, Barry. Really appreciate you. And so, of course, to our audience, lots of love for you in the comments. I will just point out. So we have, let's go through some of the monetary stuff first. Michael gifted a Turn Left membership. Michael is one of our regulars. Always lovely to see you in the chat, Michael. And Terry Regan gifted £5 and said, bloody hell. And I thought Farage singing the US national anthem was bad.
Okay.
Yes. Oh, sorry, Fergie. Farage. I read that as Farage. I've been doing politics too long. Jesus. Yes. James Holmes donated £2 and said, Jesus, that singing needed a trigger warning. Really was horrendous. Adrena gifted a Turn Left membership.
Thank you.
And Stephen kindly gifted a 10 Turn Left memberships. Thank you very much, Stephen. We do really appreciate it. Not really, Rachel Atwood donated $5 and said, hey, you can't blame us for everything. Have some humility and admit there's a real British appetite for Christo-fascist cringe slop geriatrics. Rachel Atwood is American.
Yeah, it was pretty cringe, wasn't the performances?
And donated another $2 and said religiosity is regional. It's foreign to me too. And also with another $5, I'm too tired to be pessimistic. The future is yet unwritten. MAGA is dying and will take reform down with it. If you're going through hell, keep going. And I think that was in reference to the last story, by the way.
I think that's very good advice, though, to be fair. Just keep fucking going. I also do think, though, like that MAGA is falling apart, isn't it? And Trump is just so incredibly unpopular.
Absolutely.
And Iran really, really hasn't helped with that, and they're facing down the midterms in the US now, with that not sorted, and polls suggesting that, you know, they if things stay how they are, they will lose the House, but there's even a possibility they'll lose the Senate, which is like very difficult. You know, a slight possibility, but this is really, really a really bad time for Trump.
Strange, but people don't like war. And it's like, do you not understand that anymore? Why do politicians keep doing it? People don't like it. Really, just fix the cost of living crisis. Like, people, look, we're kind of simple, aren't we? We're just like, look, we want our prime ministers and our politicians just to fix the broken economy so we can get on in life. And then they want to do these crazy shit by the imperialist escapades.
What did Bill Clinton famously say?
Was it it's the economy's stupid?
It's the economy's stupid.
Yeah.
And like Donald Trump partly campaigned on bringing down the price of eggs, didn't he? Not on bloody going to war with Iran. You know.
Yes, absolutely. Just moving now to the other comments. I did particularly like this from Awesome about the Tommy Robinson march. Sorry, some of the graphics have been a bit slow coming up. Give us this day our daily Gregs, which I thought was a particularly good one.
Is that Greg slander?
Greg slander.
Lay off Greg, man.
It's got, to be fair, it has gone a bit downhill though, Greg's. I remember a time it was, but you know, how many cold sausage rolls I'm getting lately.
That's such a northern thing to say. So Deus Ex, i.e. Ollie, said about the rally, when you're so tone deaf you don't suffer your own vocals, which I thought was a particularly good good comment. And Jim Speak simply said, I will never forgive Turn Left for this.
Yeah, I should have apologized. I'd done a trigger warning of the terrible music. I was watching Barry in the corner. Your reaction?
Yeah. No.
I am sorry. I'm sorry to our viewers. I probably should have give you a warning.
Yeah, I do think in their, and I'm very reluctant to defend these people, but I do think that because we have all of the sort of like productive talent on the left, like overwhelmingly creative people tend to be left wing. I think no one told them that when you're on stage like that and you are singing and you've got speakers in front of you, you've got to have an earpiece, because otherwise you can't hear what's being sung. And a lot of the people there are probably like mediumly okay singers, but I think because I didn't see anybody with an earpiece in, certainly not the backup vocalists, who created some of the worst of that screeching.
You're being so charitable.
Yeah. Well, do you remember when GB News first started? There were so many tech issues, right? And look, I know we're not partial to tech issues, but of course we're not billionaire funded, so forgive us. But GB News kept having some issues, right? And they still to this day have like audio issues. And someone pointed out to me, yeah, the reason why is because they can't find decent engineers or audio engineers because they're all on the left. So I think that could be part of it.
I think there's
also comedy. Like right-wing comedy, Jesus.
I've never seen right-wing comedy. It's an oxymoron. And that's not even me being biased. Like, oh, I'm offended because of right-wing comics. I still wait for like the punchline when I hear right-wing comics. It's just not funny, I'm sorry.
Like, we've seen an amazing case recently, right? Which is Graham Linehan wrote Father Ted, which is, to my mind, one of the best comedies of all time. Like, absolutely hilarious. Some of my favorite jokes of all time have appeared in that series. Like, the guy, it was amazing. Now he goes right wing and he becomes one of the most unfunny people on planet Earth. It's like all his powers of humor. Like he's done stand up. I just cringed through it. And did you see when he did this ridiculous impression of Zach Polanski on Twitter the other day?
Yeah, I did see it. That was really embarrassing, though.
It was
I think a lot of people could feel the cringe on his behalf, though.
Yeah. So it's like going right wing even like takes your powers of comedy away. Apparently.
Literally. I mean, like, but it's divine justice though, because he could have been a comic hero because of Father Ted. Went down his crazy transphobic and right wing pipeline, and now he's an embarrassment. So
amazing comments there from Keith Prince. I hear you're a racist now, Fan.
Excellent.
Another Father Ted fan, I guess, in the chat.
Yes. I guess comedy relies on self-awareness, and in order to be right-wing in the UK or the USA, I think you have to drop your self-awareness. Like, I don't think that's something you can have.
Good point.
Graham said, I heard that the reason Curtis wasn't there at the rally was because he got banned for being too right-wing at the last one.
Yes, true.
people were very kind about the footage, and many people commented saying, well done to Ben and Sarah, you managed to avoid the really ludicrous individuals. And sort of similar stuff from Actual Intrepid. Really appreciate you guys. And Sarah herself was in the chat and said, I was super scared being there, but super happy I was there with Ben. I was worried interviewing, and then said, follow up, but we got it done.
But Sarah, I don't know if you're still watching now. Sarah, the accidental comedic timing of the guy saying, like, we can't wear our flags. And you did I don't know if people have seen the James Acaster bit where he's speaking to this elder gentleman in a really empty square. And the guy's like, there's too many immigrants here. It's too busy. And then James Acaster looks around. There's no one there. He's like, oh, looks all right, doesn't it? And he's like, well, yeah. I said, well, I guess if it doesn't feel like it, it's fine, no? But later on, it's going to be shoulder to shoulder. It's like, yeah. So it was like a perfect comedic time, and a guy complaining about immigration and being too busy, and it was literally empty. And the guy said to Sarah, like, we can't wear our flags. And Sarah's like, you can't wear your flags? And then the camera pans, or Ben asked the question, I don't know, and the camera pans to all the flags. I thought it was just perfect, non-scripted comedic timing, absolutely incredible stuff.
Yeah, I deliberately turned the camera when he said that. So I was just like, there are flags. The fuck are you talking about, dude? Yeah, in terms of the overwhelming pattern, because that wasn't all of the footage of what we got on the day, but there was a pattern of basically like three groups or three reasons that people gave for being there. The first was like it's a social event. These were tended to be the people who were walking around with literally like Sainsbury's bags full of tinnies, like Carlsbergs in Sainsbury's bags. Which
that's a crime, by the way. Right,
yeah, I know, right?
Carlsberg. Who fucking drinks Carl? I'm sorry. I am sorry.
It's probably the. Sorry, I'm not going to.
Yeah, you started. You couldn't commit to that bit.
No. Too bad. Too dad joke.
Oh no. But like that's not a thing at Palestine, at the Palestine rally. Any left-wing protests you go to, people aren't handing out like bags of beer. Like me and Curtis, we both like a drink. Andy 12s likes a drink. Like it's I can't speak for Barry. Maybe you like a drink as well.
Oh, I do.
Yeah, but but I don't think any of us would turn up to a protest with a shopping bag full of tinnies. Like this is not a thing, because for them it's a social event. It's about the vibes there, and it's the same with the Christian stuff, right? It's all about the vibes. They don't really know what they're sort of going for, but for them, if it's just a Christian thing, they'll go along with it. And then there was the third major category which we found, which was pro-Shah Iranians who hate the regime so much that they're like kind of screw people in Iran and the refugees who come here, because realistically, like the people who are marching alongside them, who are walking alongside them at that rally, they're not going to see, oh well, these are like pro-Shah Iranians fleeing the regime, so their claim is legitimate. They're just going to see the boat people in the hotels, right? It's all about the vibes, if you know what I mean. Yeah, did you have any more thoughts on all that?
I mean, I thought it was your interview with the Iranian fellow was very interesting, because it was kind of like, well, no, I mean, I selectively support the refugees coming here if they politically agree with me, which is just utterly wild.
Again, it just speaks to how confused this movement is. You know, like you were saying about, make England great again, and you've got the Iranian monarchists and the pro-Israel people, and it just, it doesn't. As a proposition, it's getting too confused, I think, perhaps, to gain a large constituency.
Yeah, Navarro Media wrote a piece about the omni-cause, the right-wing omni-cause.
Right.
Yeah, like it's like a whole mesh of different ideas, and it doesn't matter that they don't fit into each other. All that matters is that they can unite under the a picture of Tommy Robinson or Nigel Farage or Donald Trump, and it's just a general vibe which is very it is very Nazi-esque. Like that is pretty much how the Nazis operated, a lot on vibes, and also a lot of the contradictions about like Israel. Terry Regan said, I thought it was Britain first, not Israel first. Yeah,
I think because the Aaron Bastani clip on GB News always comes to my mind when he speaks to Matt Goodwin. And he goes, not Israel, not Israel. You guys had it right when you were all Britain first, but where are Britain first now is all pro-Israel stuff. And I personally think that's kind of there's multiple different ways they can defeat this, but I think it's one of the correct ways to embarrass their movement, is to point out, you act like you're patriots, you act like you're Britain first, but you're anything but. And all you are is, you complain about the quote-unquote globalists, and we know the connotations attached to that word, but you complain about the globalists, but you have your own type of global movement, and that is not in favor of sovereignty or states. To me, I would say it's in favor of global oligarchy. So I think it's good to point that out, and I think, Aaron, that clip of Aaron on GB News, like really probably, I think it would have resonated with people who are more right-leaning, but...
Well, like, again, to come back to the Iran-US thing, there's a sort of a similar thing happening there, right? Because the US-Israeli war on Iran is massively unpopular in the US, but it's also massively unpopular with MAGA. Like, MAGA supporters do not support this war. And, I had, somebody said to me a while ago, an American, this was never a MAGA project. Going to war with Iran was never a MAGA project. They did not vote for this. And they're not shy about criticizing it right now. And, so I do think, what Aaron is also saying about the British right and the association with Israel, it really undercuts this whole Britain first, America first pitch.
Yeah, I think some of the best memes that I've seen about this are the ones that are captioned Britain first, but Israel firstest, which I thought was a brilliant way of putting it. I don't want to spend too long on that story. We'll move on to some of the other comments. I will just say, Becca said that Valentina Gomez needs to take her own advice about dangerous people being let into the country. And Autumn Leaves said protect our girls in response to the video of the guy trying to hit on the 15-year-old.
Absolutely disgusting.
It's horrible.
Just repulsive.
Yeah. When it comes to the second story about Andy Burnham and West Streeting, of course we have to do the classic. Shut up, Wesley. The all too important.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Important comment. But Jake has, I feel like, reflected how a lot of people, I think, are feeling about this by-election, which is, I don't know how to feel about this by-election. I thought I did, but I really don't. And there was a mix of opinion. I feel like a lot of people feel like Burnham would be more of the same. Burnham is Starmer. I did think that Becca added a really interesting. Becca's comments are always interesting, but added this really interesting bit of context into it. So Josh Simons, the MP who was in the seat originally, apparently stood down, according to Becca, because he's got a 3-week-old baby. He's knackered. He knows he won't keep that seat. He's lost his job with Think Labour, what was formerly Labour Together, and he's trying to jump before he is pushed. I did not know that, and I thought that's an interesting bit of information.
I didn't know about the baby either. Yeah.
Yeah,
I did see people say that he's tired, but I didn't know that he has a newborn.
Yes, but opinion on Burnham and Burnham and running it was sort of mixed. Emma said Burnham is not exciting, but he's better than either Streeting or Starmer, in my opinion. Obviously, not as good as a Green. And Emma said, I definitely think, following on from that, I definitely think the Greens should stand and be very prominent in hustings to force some left voices and questions to be heard. Because it is an interesting sort of picture. And I feel like there is I'll put this to you and see what you think, because I've been sort of like just jotting down what I think in between, because I think we've got to accept that there aren't any good or guaranteed outcomes. There's no good or guaranteed outcomes from this by-election and the current options. I think if the Greens do concede anything, run a paper candidate or whatever, then I think they have to require Burnham to meet at least two conditions. First of all, in this term, in this administration, introduce proportional representation. Like in this term, no dilly-dallying about it. And any MPs who rebel against, rebel and try to vote against PR, deselections immediately. The way that Starmer deselected people who voted against the winter fuel allowance. If you set that precedent, let that be the precedent. And when a left-wing administration is in, you get the same fucking treatment that you gave us. I think that has to be one of the conditions. But I think the other condition should be funding for things like local initiatives, giving a bunch of funding to local devolved government for cooperative initiatives, credit unions, and energy bill reduction measures. For example, subsidizing local power, retrofitting houses, and insulation, which can appeal to older people. The Greens in Lewisham have done precisely this, appeal to a lot of older people and act as the sort of anti-winter fuel cut party, so that there's a clear distinction, because if Burnham doesn't follow through on that, he's making himself more like Starmer. And again, they've got to be harsh on this, because at some point Burnham is going to have to turn to a lot of Greens and go, well, we might need to form a coalition to beat Reform at the next election. And so you can hold him in place, but I think it is risky because he might not keep his word. But if you run and Reform get in, you're not getting anywhere either, if you see what I mean. It's about moving the conversation left, but I don't know. I keep switching positions personally. What do you guys think?
It's just like the trust, though.
Yeah.
That all sounds amazing, but it's just like, can Labour be trusted anymore? It just, I don't know.
If Burnham says, okay, I give you my word, I will support PR, there is literally nothing stopping him changing that, you know.
No.
And the idea that Burnham would start deselecting people, I think, wouldn't happen. That does. You have to be quite strong-willed to do that, and I think that one thing about Andy Burnham is he isn't particularly that strong-willed, which is why your joke, Barry, earlier about like a Corbynite, a Blairite, Starmerite came into the bar. What were you having, Andy? Because like to breeze through different factions so easily is concerning. It shows that you don't really have much of a spine.
This is a good point in the chat there from Megan113. Look how that worked out for Nick Clegg.
Right.
I guess the condition that you can impose on them as the Green candidate is, one, you can say, okay, forget any alliance with us at the next election. We're not propping you fuckers up. Forget it. And two, you get them to vote against the funding for local cooperatives and to reduce people's energy bills. So you turn them into a bit like the way the Tories and Reform put forward a bill that said we should do a investigation into grooming gangs, and it also stripped a load of funding from schools so that Labour voted against it so that children would still get free school meals. But attached to that was like the National Inquiry into grooming gangs, and under every politician's tweets now, every Labour politician tweets, there's like a raft of people going, you voted against an inquiry into grooming gangs. Do a similar thing to the Labour Party with both proportional representation and the winter fuel allowance, or housing retrofitting and saving people money on energy bills. Because I think the only way to do it is to hold them to account with very clear messaging, because it's almost a communications problem as much as it is a how do we hold them to account problem. Do you see where I'm coming from?
You know what? I think all this just confirms my point about how Andy Burnham, the further away Andy Burnham is from Westminster, the more effective he is. When he was running for Labour leadership and part of the Westminster bubble, you couldn't decide where he was. I thought his leadership campaign, even with Jeremy Corbyn, was pretty abysmal. Of course, it's very hard to run an effective campaign when Jeremy Corbyn comes in and outflanks you to your left. But like, he voted for the Iraq War. He voted for PFI. I think he was a member of LFI. He voted for. I believe he also voted. He was. I believe he voted for welfare reform. Then he leaves the Westminster bubble. He then says the Westminster bubble is toxic, becomes mayor of Manchester, and does some really good things. And now he's going back into that Westminster bubble, and we're already seeing the cracks before he's even been accepted as a candidate. Remember, the NEC have not decided the candidate yet. I think we'd all expect it to be Burnham. But regardless, he hasn't even got to that stage yet, and he's already U-turning. He's already being enamored by the Westminster politics. So I think Andy Burnham is just someone who should never be anywhere near Westminster. So maybe it is good for the country that Andy Burnham isn't Prime Minister. I don't know. I find it hard to sit with, because the last thing I want is a reform of government. Right? That terrifies me. But is it good for general politics that we have someone like Andy Burnham, who I think for a lot of people, and I don't get the excitement, whether you think they should be a candidate for the Greens or not, like the excitement's ridiculous. There are people who really like Andy Burnham, and if Andy Burnham ends up being completely dishonest, you really have just completely told everyone in the country not to trust this political system. I know many people don't trust this political system. We're all very skeptical, but like the few remaining people who believe in Andy Burnham, they're going to be completely demoralized. And unfortunately, when it comes to demoralization, the right and the far right, I think, are seemingly better at picking up these people than the left at this moment. Maybe a Burnham becoming Prime Minister could actually have some really negative, far-reaching consequences that we can't foresee.
I tell you where you do extract concessions like that, and it's guaranteed, is in a system of proportional representation, where coalition governments are the norm, notwithstanding what happened with the Lib Dems and the Tories. We see that in Ireland all the time under the PRSV STV system. We generally always have a coalition government, and what happens after the election is people get together and they discuss their agenda and they agree a policy platform. Sometimes it can be very small parties, and they just have 6-7 seats to offer for support, and they will extract some policy concessions to offer those 6-7 votes. Again, it's just another another plea for proportional representation.
Yeah. I'm with you on PR, though. Absolutely with you on that. I don't think we can get any kind of meaningful political change if we stick to this undemocratic first past the post.
And this is the largest Labour majority that we've seen certainly since the 80s. Like it just hasn't. It's just ridiculous that the Labour government, they could stop reform right now. They could stop reform right now by bringing about proportional representation, and it would destroy loads of Nigel Farage's plans because he'd have to negotiate with a load of different political actors.
I think Blair did have a bigger majority, but what's unprecedented is Blair had a high vote share. This is like one of the largest majorities on such a low vote share.
Oh, I thought
it's so concerning.
I thought Starmer's majority was bigger. I could be completely wrong.
We should probably
but
fact check that one. But
yeah,
I'm sure Blair edged him. But what matters though is the fact that he has such a large majority on such a small proportion of the vote.
That is significant. That one's gonna said the forgotten party is the cooperative co-op party. Remember, Labour is the Labour and Cooperative Party, which was one of the reasons I said about funding for local cooperative initiatives should be something that the Greens push, because it's another place where Labour will split, and will split slightly more to the centre rather than just to the left on, potentially. I wanted to wrap up the comments because we have overrun quite a bit. I am so sorry, Barry, that we've overrun so much.
Hey, Ben, it's probably my fault. I never stopped talking.
That's why you're so good for the show.
Just on a technical point, I did want to. Mummet M8212 said, "Look how clear and loud Barry's mic is. Curtis, sort yours out." Okay, that's slightly my fault, but it's more over the software. Basically, the software end that we're currently using doesn't show us a good reflection of
the audio gain.
It doesn't show the audio gain. And it's really deceptive. Like, what I'm hearing my end is not what's heard in the recording later on. So I do apologize about that, but that's don't shout about Curtis about that. It's not a hardware issue. It's not on his end. It's a software issue, and it's the software we use. So apologies about that. I will hand back to you and let you guys close out the show. Thank you very much for coming on. I'm sorry I waffled a lot. I had a lot to say on this, but appreciate you both, and thank you for the fantastic show.
Thank you so much, Ben. Really, really good comment section. I particularly enjoyed it because it wasn't just us agreeing on everything. There was some interesting dynamics going on. I'm still not sure where I sit on this particular issue of the green.
Your comment section is so good. Honestly, like there's always really good points. Everybody's really like collegiate and sound and funny. It's a great audience you have.
Very rare we get harsh comments, to be fair. Although when we do, we actually like to bring them up. I love a disagreement. I love it when a right winger comes and it's brilliant. But of course, and our audience are always so welcoming to our guests. Of course, we've had love in the chat for Barry. That's because Barry, you are fantastic. I love having you on. We'll have you on again. But of course, that is going to wrap up the show. But Barry, thank you for coming on tonight.
Thank you. It was enjoyable as always.
Remember, if you want to support us, we are all volunteers at the moment doing this around our full-time jobs. We're not backed by the billionaires or those that back Tommy Robinson. We're backed by you. So if you want to support our work, you can go to turnleftmedia.co.uk/support. There is a link to our Patreon, another link for a one-time contribution. Alternatively, you can become a YouTube member for 99p. We also have a shop now. If you want to rep your socialists' credentials, if you want to, we've had a new rebrand, only a month old. If you want to wear our new logo, then you can go to shop.turnleftmedia.co.uk. Remember, we go live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7:30 p.m. You've been watching Normal Ireland Live. I'm Curtis Daly, and I'll see you next time.